Real knowledge is knowing yourself, who and what you are.
Even though most white people are not consciously understanding their problem in genetics, they are certainly aware that they are genetically dominated by people of color. That's why it was a statement, one drop of black blood makes you black, because people of color have the genetic capacity to annihilate white people. And so unless white people control the reproductivity of people of color, then we can postulate that perhaps one day there won't be any white people. And I think that the very survival of white people necessitates that they project genetic inferiority on people of color, because it is they who really are aware that they are genetic recessive and perhaps genetically inferior to people of color. But I think that it is of prime importance for the majority of people in the world to understand why it is that white people have to, the effective majority, large numbers of white people, have to move in a hostile and an aggressive way against people of color, and have to constantly focus on it's you who's genetically inferior, because they realize that there's something wrong with their genetic status.
Okay. I am saying that this behavior is at the subconscious level, and there's a lot of evidence. For example, just on Saturday, the New York Times had an article talking about the percentage of people who want a tan. 66%. I have the article if anybody wants to look at it later. 66% of white adults think they look better with a tan. 70% white adolescents think they look better with a tan. What do white people? Ooh, I look so pale. Now, this is not something that Frances Welsing is putting on people. White females even say their ideal mate is who? Tall, dark, and handsome. Oh, and let me just throw this out. A few weeks from now is going to be Valentine's Day. And what are the ladies going to want? Chocolate candy. And this is why the attack on the genitals, there's no history in the world of any non-white men attacking white men's genitals. But why do white men feel the need to zero in on the black man's genitals and cut them off? You see, and a lot of this is played out in symbolic behavior in this culture. For example, the culture says, keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
There is horrendous stress on the men because the men present the threat to white genetic survival. Being lynched, I was a little girl, very little. They were talking about somebody had been lynched, and they were kind of talking in hushed tones, and I remember asking my grandmother, Granny, why did they do that? My grandmother said, well, because some people have to act ugly. Now, lynching and castration means what? To kill and to attack the genitals of the black man. See, I always wondered, what is that all about? See, black men may do many things. You've never heard tell in history of a black man attacking a white man's genitals. It's no history. It's no history of people of color attacking white people's genitals. But there is global history of people who classify themselves as white attacking the genitals of non-white men. So you say, why? Because the brain computer wants to understand in depth so that it can move with greater power. So this is the key. This tiny group of people, this tiny minority of people on the planet are trying to survive genetically. And so their thing, a lot of people say, oh no, their thing is money. They make money. They don't make melanin. See, they manufacture money. But God makes melanin. Now they didn't have it, and so their struggle is to survive genetically. Black boys and little white girls and little white boys and little black girls, and everybody integrate together. But we had a very great scientist whose name was Dr. Martin Luther King, who conducted a very important and profound experiment. He said, I believe it's a question of love. If we can show them how to love, I think it will change their behavior. did not understand the fear of white genetic annihilation, and he did not understand that if everybody loved, that white would disappear. Malcolm X, he also was a great political scientist who conducted an experiment, but he was talking about not love. He was thinking about the bullet, so he had to be eliminated. But Dr. Martin Luther King, who talked about love, and because that would lead to white genetic annihilation, he was also killed. Do you understand?
Wait a minute. When they realized that they were just a tiny, tiny minority population on the planet. And see, we're still busy calling ourselves minorities. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They are the minority on the planet, but they know the value of saying repeatedly to other people that they are the minorities because it makes them feel weak and it makes them feel vulnerable. So we really need to start talking about the global white minority. See, and the global white minority realized that for them to genetically survive on planet Earth, they have to have control over all of the non-white people. And because black people have the greatest genetic potential to cause white genetic annihilation, the heaviest pressure has to be on us as a people, as a total people, and as black men in particular.
Themselves as white or whether they're black. Anybody who refuses to talk about racism, white supremacy, hates black people. I want to go on record as saying that because racism is a spear in the hearts of black people. You see, and it is leading us to genocide. And so to refuse to talk about it, you see, or not want to talk about it, hates black people. I mean, in other words, if it's killing us and it's destroying our future, why isn't that hate?